Well, ladies and gentlemen, by my clock, it's 7 o'clock. I call this meeting of the General Government and Public Safety Committee to order. I assume attendance is taken. If you would rise and recite the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Next on the agenda, we have a proclamation recognizing the state champion Centralia High School cheerleaders. And in the mayor's absence, I believe Mayor Pro Tem is giving it.
Well, I know Tim would certainly rather be here than where he's at, but it's certainly my honor to be able to recognize the cheerleaders for their outstanding accomplishment now 2 years in a row. Having been a parent of a cheerleader at one point in time, I do recognize the commitment and the work that goes into accomplishment like this. So I'm going to read the mayor's proclamation. Championship proclamation. Whereas on Saturday, November 7th, 2015, the Centralia High School varsity cheerleading squad defended their 2014 state cheerleading title to retain their first place position in the 2015 Missouri State High School cheerleading competition, facing and beating 4 other teams in Class 2A small division of the championship final. And whereas the 2015 Centralia High School cheerleading squad has heightened the civic pride and the community spirit and garnered favorable attention from regional and statewide news media, enhanced once again the reputation of the Centralia R6 school district and the community. And whereas the cheerleaders and the coaches of the Centralia High School cheerleading squad have demonstrated what heights can be achieved when great students and coaches work together towards the same goal. And whereas this is the final year for some members of the Centralia High School cheerleading squad as they are graduating and opening new chapters in their lives, we encourage them to continuously build and improve on their successes. And now, therefore, it is the proclamation of the mayor of the city of Centralia, Missouri, that all citizens of Centralia and the Centralia R6 school district congratulate the 2015 Centralia cheerleading squad and its coaches for their success in defending their state championship title. Signed and sealed in the office of the mayor, 12th day of January 2016. Signed, Tim Grinke, Mayor, Centralia.
We can get the seniors or the varsity members or whichever up here with the mayor put it down. Seniors that are standing in for.
Put the phone up there too.
Yes, sure.
Just gather around him over there.
In a pyramid. Very sure it's got
You stand in the center of them,
Oh, I
Your
got
Honor. And what?
We got one more for sure.
I was just gonna let them take that.
Hold the proclamation over where you can see it, and ladies, reach in and put your hands on it.
naturally.
All right. 1, 2, and 3. Let's see what I got. One more just to be on the safe side. 1, 2, and 3. And 1, 2, and 3.
Congratulations.
Thank you. Congratulations.
Oh, I got the.
Thank you.
Mr. Wilkins, it might be, in the past when we've done this, we've had the young folks kind of stand up and introduce themselves and
Absolutely,
tell
please
us
do.
who the folks were.
Please do. Start on
If
either
it
end.
is, we'll start.
Seniors, how about seniors go?
I'm Alex Sainer. I'm a senior member of the Centralia cheerleading squad.
And your folks
And
are.
my parents are Leanna Mickle and James Brackley.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I am Becky Tratchell. I'm the
senior, and my parents are Aunt Trachel and Doug Trachel.
Thank you.
I'm Savannah Taylor, I'm a senior, and my parents are Angie Taylor and Mike Taylor.
I'm Sarah Scott, I'm a senior, and my parents are Robin Scott and Bill Scott.
Juniors.
I'm Addie Flake, and I'm a junior, and my parents are Keith and Mindy Flake.
I'm Mary Motley, and I'm a junior, and my parents are Tim and Terry Motley.
I'm Melissa Rackley, and my parents are Angie and Christopher Rackley.
I'm Mary Kate Sullivan. My dad is Sean Sullivan, and my mom is Ginger Moore.
I'm Cheyenne Woodhouse, I'm a sophomore, and my parents are Jason and Tawny Woodhouse.
My name is Chelsea Garcia. I'm a sophomore, and my parents are Ray Blair and Lisa Garcia.
I'm Sydney Hendrick. I'm a sophomore, and my parents are Jason and Lloyd Hendrick. I'm Emily Danbacker. I'm a sophomore, and my parents are Fred and Melissa Reeves.
Thank you all very much. Outstanding. Good job.
Don't forget the coaches.
Absolutely.
Sure.
Oh, I'm Rebecca Croft. I'm the coach.
Well, there you go.
And I want to say thank you all for coming, and Alderman Lee said I'm sorry I'm not able to be there tonight, but I really wish I could be. But congratulations to you all.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you so much. Great night to be a Panther. Thank you all very much.
Absolutely.
Okay. You're all welcome to stay and watch the rest of festivities while we talk about the matter. and-
Actually, they have practice.
It's going to be a riveting meeting on capital budget requests.
Thank you all. Thank you.
You just won a state championship. How can there be more practice?
I'll give you a try to tell her.
It never ends, it never ends.
Right.
You all.
Thank you. Right now,
Thank you so much.
my car, that's fine. Okay. I need to have to
Go.
Or you know, I could just go back to this.
Thank you all very much for coming out.
Moving on to comments from citizens.
2/3 of our crowd.
If there's no one else, I'll go ahead.
And please state who you are and your address.
Sure, Daniel, oh, that's right. Oh,
Is it
it's
on?
plugged in. Daniel De La Rosa, 429 South Collier Street, Centralia, Missouri.
Go ahead.
Oh, yes, I want to address a misunderstanding with the chief last week. We weren't speaking about the same thing. What I was referring to were some poles that are city poles, and supposedly I can't move them because they are city poles that were stuck in my garden. But that is not really the main concern of the problem. I did print up pictures, but I don't have them with me. I couldn't get them to print out in time. However, stakes that are city stakes, that are in the street, that don't just manipulate my property line, they actually manipulate whole blocks of property lines. And I have two other, I'm just saying this to make you aware of it. I have heard from two other property owners, also on Bar Street, that this also compromises their property lines. And so you've got property lines running underneath other people's houses, underneath garages and things like that. Those houses are the only houses that were ever built in that area. They are in themselves landmarks in themselves. So anyway, I wanted to bring that to your attention because there was a lack of clarity, and I'll take responsibility for that last time, and produced an argument. But there is no reason for argument. These are just simple facts, and they've been. Not only was the stake at the end of my block moved, but evidently something to do with Bar Street. I haven't seen all those yet, but I did see them. This process took about a year and a half, and this is the last I'll speak of it. But I am speaking of it publicly, and I want to clarify exactly to what I am speaking of. I have no complaints against the police department. The gentleman you sent out is a great guy to talk to, and, nothing like that. I'm just saying, and I wouldn't even call the police department because of that, because it's going to put them in a compromised position, what side are they even supposed to take, you know?
We don't take a side, Mr. Lewis.
Well, I mean, there would be no, it just wouldn't be clear, and, you know, it just isn't a common occurrence, and it would be hard to understand exactly what all the legal implications would be, or all that, you know, because, you know, what layman understands legal terms, you know?
I appreciate you saying that, thank you.
All right, so anyway, I wanted to make sure that that was clear, you know, it has nothing to do with that. It has more to do with the corruption of the grid of Centralia. And really, everyone should really think about, you know, what that means, because that is your foundation. And that's all I'd like to say. May I be dismissed?
Thank you.
Thanks.
He runs the meeting.
Any other comments? Hearing and moving on to Public Safety, Police Department Activity Report. It's in your packet. Any questions or comments?
I understand there's a
Yes.
telephone outage over the police department.
We've had it.
David?
Yes, sir.
I just like to take a moment and compliment the police department and the chief and Officer Bellamy for the outstanding job they did from, I guess, protecting that the young lady's financial well-being, I guess you could say, from week. I think they did an outstanding job with that, and I appreciate it.
Thank you, sir. Thank you. I don't know if you can hear or not. Thank you.
You're welcome, Larry.
Thank you. But, somebody asked a question?
Yes, telephone outage.
Oh, we did. I think it was bigger than the police department. I think it was a company, I think it was a charter downage. I hate to say that word in case it wasn't. Pay those fine folks, because I beat them up. I think it was a charter outage like 2 mornings in a row.
We had the same thing.
I think everybody, it was a community-wide thing, I'm sure of it, but just that quick, they fixed it. I think one morning we were down there about an hour, and the other morning, early morning hours, we were down, I don't know, an hour or 2, re-roll out, laundry yard as well. Yeah. What are you gonna do?
I'm just a little concerned that this has happened more than once.
If I could
We
fix
have,
it.
the one thing we have been able to do is Charter, we switched to their service, what was it, Larry, about a little over a year ago? And
Yes.
we've had several outages. We have been, they did give us the option of having the phone roll over. The police phones, I believe, roll over to a cell phone, so
Yes.
it's not, so
Yes.
if they call the main number, there is a catch. If it will catch those calls unless they call one of if they call the main number. Now, it's all to one cell phone, and that's not ideal. And make sure that I'm sure that you guys, has nothing to do with the 911 system.
Nothing. This is 2131, 2132. If our phones go down in the area. If I could fix it, I'd go to working on it tomorrow, but it's not just us. I think it's today's times. It's terrible to say. But
Well,
we
there was significant cost savings by switching to.
Yes, that's
That was
why
part of what had to be weighed in the
Yes.
decision to do this.
Yes.
We did not anticipate that there would be as many outages as there have been.
Certainly.
But yes, there has been significant cost savings and a couple, I'm trying to remember when it's through. thousands of dollars a year.
Right.
And I'm not beating anybody up. I'm not a premium stockholder of Charter or CenturyLink, but that's just the way it is. Phone lines go down, what are you gonna do? What are you gonna do? But yes, I guess that's a long answer to say yes, sir, you're right. Phones did go down.
Well, so is the cell phone that it rolls to at dispatch?
It is, sir.
So when that does occur, Brenda or whomever is right there to
Yes.
pick it up anyway, right?
Yes. It takes us a minute to get, we have to realize, one, that the phones are down. And then, after we verify that, then we get cell phone on running, and should, so far, so good.
Yeah, I guess that might be the only thing, is the initial realization that they're down. Would be the only
Yes.
thing I can see.
And of course, you can't tell. I mean, it gets quieter, but, you know,
Well, no, exactly, yeah.
Unless you're making a call out.
that's when,
Right. I guess that answered your initial question.
Yes.
Any other questions about the activity report before we move on? Capital budget requests. Any specific requests from the police department?
there are a couple, nothing, and I don't, do you wanna, correct me if I'm wrong, but we have in there enough $16,000, which is, the last police car we bought, used, was $15,100. There was a, offsetting revenues from the, insurance settlement, but the, being cautious and assuming some increase, we've budgeted $16,000. The plan is not to go, as we have done in the last several years, and buy the police cars on April 1, but to see how long we can go with what we have now, having some money budgeted.
Just in case.
Yeah, with, and
Just
with
in case.
the repair record on one of our cars, we want to be, we don't have enough money budgeted to pull the trigger if we can see that, you know, it's, we're
Right.
throwing good money after bad, basically. We see, when we get to that point of diminishing returns, basically.
So how much budget per car?
16,000.
16,
Yeah. And then there's 5,000 be budgeted to purchase a piece of equipment that'll allow them to put barcodes on evidence, and meaning they've been requested to do this. You wanna elaborate, Gene?
Yes, it's not that big a deal, it's just where we are in today's times. We take in evidence, whatever that is, we want to be able to track it more professionally than handwritten or even printed to the computer, that evidence, where it is, whether or not it needs to go to the lab, has it been to the lab, is it ready for pickup, and picking it back. This barcode system will tend to that.
It's like an inventory control system, isn't it?
It's exactly what it is. It's just, I've put it off basically the last 4 or 5 years thinking I would, and it's probably time not to put it off. Now, somebody can help me connect the dots here. Bob told me today that there is such a service available through Interpol, which is through Huber what we do. That may save us some money. But just preliminarily, I asked the city administrator to just think about a $5,000, give or take. I think we can get up and running there with that, but we need to do that. It's time. What we're doing now is even before a dial telephone. It's just not, so we probably need to bring that up to speed.
So those are the two things.
That's it.
Yes.
Okay.
And just let me say one more time with respect to the, I was just afraid not to ask him not to budget a car just in case one goes hard down, because then I have to come over here and we have to take money from one thing to just keep us running. So that's my thinking. We're not gonna run out and buy a car. I'm just afraid not to do that.
If we make it through the year, we've
We're
got.
great, we're golden.
Do we have a car that's starting to?
Yes,
Okay.
yes. It's the old white car, I said the old white car.
Oh.
It's 2007, bought
Okay.
before I got here new,
Right.
or it wouldn't have been. But it's just wearing me down.
It's the last new car we bought.
I'll guarantee you, we've bought no new equipment since I've been here in 2007. That was bought under a previous administration. But it's just got a ton of miles on it, and it's just a crapshoot whether to start and whether to run. Just,
This is just a curiosity question on my part for
Yes.
the inventory, or the inventory system, the barcode system for evidence. Is the expectation that you would go back and then barcode everything that you already have in evidence?
Yes.
Or just from that point forward?
I think at some point we'll have to barcode everything.
Everything's in there, okay? Okay.
That would not include, I hate to bring this up, but that would not include the, we still have a ton of stuff secured for the Toops murder. That was how long ago? Right? Wasn't that?
True.
True.
Mark,
True.
that was,
That's
Long
gotta
time.
be kept pretty much indefinitely, though.
Yes, well, it's ours to keep indefinitely, just indefinitely. So we probably will not barcode some of that. We have that put away, secured, safe. So
Gotcha.
anything else, we'll try to go back.
So there's a little bit of labor involved as well, and that's all I meant was that.
Yes,
as opposed to being that
yes,
point
sir.
forward, you're gonna
It'd
try
be
to
labor
backfill.
intensive for a while once we get up.
Gotcha. Any other questions for police department? Fire department activity report. Is that in your packet?
One, I asked, I sent you an email about this. We got 3 alarms on one property. Those are all remotely, like, is a remote service for those ones? Is that right on North Allen? Or, I believe for this month you had 3, on fire calls, you had 3 fire alarms on one address.
Yes.
they have faulty, I mean, they'll get an air bubble inside their sprinkler system. I mean, if you ever took a tour inside the factory and kind of looked at some of this stuff,
And so anytime it said, when you have it, when you wrote on the report fire alarm, that means fire alarm without any other, that was all that took place, is you went and found an alarm.
right, I mean, we would put on, like, I mean, we've been over there when they had gone off and stuff, I mean. They have trouble with the sensors every so often inside there.
Yeah, I forgot that was what the address was. Okay.
They usually take them out of service, you know, if something goes wrong, the maintenance guys are supposed to call the alarm company, and that usually sometimes don't get done, so.
That's not, it's not ideal to have resources used over and over again, so I guess we need to keep talking to them. Maybe we can get this fixed so they don't call you out so often. I mean, that's not an unusual event, right? Wouldn't that be better?
I'm not right now, I mean, I don't think I want to get my hoot and rants or chance there.
No, but, no, I'm not saying.
I'm just saying, I would,
Right, but.
probably simpler just to take care of the alarm and go on.
No.
I'm not a fire guy, I just, over there when they go off. It seems if alarm K4 or whatever you wanna call it, it'll jump up and down 2 or 3 days in a row before they get it right.
You know, Mike and them with the water department can, do a hydrant, you know, flush a hydrant, and that'll kick an alarm off. So I mean, it's not,
All right, so you're not losing sleep over this?
no.
But there were, that's not the, is that, we have any other locations where we had to chase this alarm that you haven't had it fixed? I mean, I
No,
thought-
because I mean, the other, most of the other alarms are over there at the engineering building, but I mean,
Well, I mean, any
What
other,
time?
address, not necessarily.
oh, the engineering building would be, but that's usually burnt coffee or somebody left something on the stove and they don't pay attention.
Not that same company, but, okay, all right.
I don't have any other automatic alarms in town.
Yeah, no,
School and change company.
Yes.
Any other activity report questions? Let's move on to capital budget request for the fire department.
we got another year, we got 4 more years of payments on the fire truck.
Sure.
And then the other thing is a little bit of money, I think everything else in your budget, you sent me a list of things you'd like to see, but almost the rest of those are not capital items, those are just annual replacement of equipment type stuff, or operating expenses. May want to use, we've got about $6,000 in the smoking tax money that's dedicated. That probably could help us replace some pagers, which we've got some that are going out. So that's all that we're looking at doing this year.
Pagers?
And continuing to pay off the project.
Oh, exactly.
Yeah, that's really bad.
I haven't talked to Jeff in over a month at Banner. You didn't run into him at the show.
Yeah. I mean, I'd say this morning, we probably really won't hear nothing start, maybe in the middle of next month and stuff. it'll start.
Hope to have a hearing for time for graduation, maybe.
I think it's an Anchorfest fire truck.
Anchorfest fire.
I think it'd be that.
That'd be kind of nice, break it out for the parade.
Anything else for the fire department?
I wouldn't tell them to hold off until the Anchorfest.
Okay, hearing none, moving on to emergency management. Nothing? Okay, protective inspection.
We got a huge jump on the year for building permits. We got 7 new single family residents. 6 of them are in one block though, on the Ivy Street, so. But it's a pretty good start.
Sure.
For the year.
Moving on to general government and finance, economic development, credit. Board meeting minutes are in your packet from January 28th. Any questions on that? Yes, sir.
How much money did it take in on the fundraiser?
Did they have that in the report in the minutes?
I do not see it.
I don't see it. I went to the meeting and it was it was positive, but it wasn't nearly like what it was last year. They decided this year they wanted to pay all the food vendors, that they didn't want to, they got a lot of freebies last year. They didn't think that was a good model going forward, so it was a very thin profit. It was hundreds of dollars. I don't want to quote a number and get wrong, but my understanding is less than $1,000, if I remember correctly. But there's still some transactions to take
I
place.
understand, I was just looking for.
Yeah, last year I think they netted over 3,000. It wasn't nearly that successful in those terms.
Thank you, sir.
It was a very nice event.
Do you know, are they expecting to do any other fundraising? Or
Memberships, I don't know that they're going to do some more events, but maybe not fundraising events. They were looking at doing another, kind of, I'm trying to remember what kind of, they were talking about doing an event that would be, kind of like the starting point that they, or starting line that they did last summer, more of a meet and greet social type thing.
Oh, yeah.
And also moving forward with trying to get, moving into the next, segueing into the next agenda item without, unless there's an objection. Trying to put together an actual group to meet with. We got the company that came to us at first is still very interested. So one of their tasks would be to try and develop a group of investors to come to meet with that company, or anybody else, and, you know, publish the results, and they're done, and I just gotta get them on the website and send out a press release, but basically let people know that we've got a report here that says it's feasible. And, again, we're still not married to anybody, but if Pivot Sports said, hey, we want to put a sporting goods store in your town, not many people would suggest that we would say, whoa, 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 let's talk to MC Sports first.
All right.
Yeah, I mean, we let the market take its short course. So whatever that's about, that's the stage we're at right now. We've got a report that says it is feasible. Our role should, from my point of view, staff recommendation kind of thing is to kind of start to keep our hands out of it, because government shouldn't be in the choice in the business of picking winners and losers. CREDI, the chamber, those organizations that we support for economic development, it's kind of their turn. So that was my speech for next steps.
Okay.
And that doesn't mean that I wouldn't
Sorry.
but
You flail or something, so I can see what you're.
Quick question. What does CREDI do with the money they raise? Do they use it for feasibility studies? Do they use it for entertaining prospective businesses and investors? What do they do with it?
So far this year that they've spent money to produce a map of a variety of different businesses in town. They're available at many different locations. They've worked on they supported a third of the feasibility study, as did the chamber and as did the city. They meet on the last Thursday of the month. I don't want to be in sort of the position of speaking for them, since there's not a representative here, but they have put together some events last year that I thought put some people together in the room that started talking about things, including a hotel. And it hasn't, economic development, I could tell you stories of economic development directors who didn't have a success for 5 years and then bam, things fell into place.
Which actually does segue into my next question, which is how often do they actually have a representative here for this meeting, since the report is at this meeting?
When Gabe Martinez was president, he was here every month.
Every month.
Since then, they have not been here every month.
More than the chamber does, I can tell you that.
Yeah. Okay.
They've made 3 meetings this year.
Anything more on economic development? Moving on to park board. There is an agenda from their January 19th meeting, and it looks like we also have meeting minutes from that. Any questions on that? Hearing none, let's talk about the pool improvements update.
Oh, yes. Basically, they are almost done with the pool parts. They're getting close. They need to wait for it to warm up to do a couple last pours on concrete and some other minor parts, getting the surface for the splash pad. We're beginning to move into the stage of the building, the new bathhouse, or for locker rooms and and locker room, administrative facility, whatever you want to call it, for the pool, where the guards will be. And they've, so we haven't got the final engineer plans from Reinhardt, but Reinhardt will kind of take over his contract at this point. Westport Pools did the pool part. Now we're kind of shifting to Reinhardt doing the rest of it. They've worked with city staff, between Earl, representatives of Westport Pool, Reinhardt, the architects, etc., and particularly Mark Mustaine and Mike Horsey to make sure the water and sewer and electric go in the best way possible. In a perfect universe, we probably could have had some of that done a little bit sooner, but it's going to all work out real well.
All right.
It's moving forward.
Any questions? Hearing none, cemetery report? None. Tree board report? None. Library board. I've just got some meeting minutes from the January 14th meeting packet. As well as the agenda from the meeting scheduled for the 11th. Any questions, comments, concerns? Hearing none, moving on to January 2016 financial statements.
We continue to do well, but we made huge leaps last year in sales tax, and March was very, very good. March 15 was very, very good. Unless that repeats itself, we're probably going to be about even with where we were last year. Property tax is up too, though. You have to remember that the size of that in our budget, those two items are substantial for the general fund, but they're, together about 35%. So overall, the rest of it's okay, it's good, it's not, in utilities, we're meeting last year's, but when you look at people wanting raises and the expense, now, fuel is down. And actually, we made a pretty good gain in the 6121, 6211 account, where we keep track of our equipment use. So I'm hoping to see if there may be that we're going to be able to use that to offset all the costs of the capital equipment that we need to make, but it's not quite as rosy as I thought it was going to be about 2 months ago. We're okay, life's good, but between now and the next meeting, and particularly by March, we'll have a better idea of some pretty large ticket items. Like, we need to get a new dump truck. We got to figure out a way to pay for that. But then we've got right now we're at the request of. Right now, one of the things we've looked at from time to time is the rule of 80 or 80 and out. So we're getting us some numbers run for us by loggers. But I was a little bit more excited about that possibility 3 months ago than I am now. So we'll see. Also, we just had a very cold month, which is bad for ratepayers, but that means more money for the city. So it's kind of one of those things where you don't know what to hope for, because people don't like paying the big bills, but the big bills is what runs the city. So we'll see how that month how this last month comes out, how we're doing. But when the city's in good financial position. It was in good financial position when Lynn left it, still is. I'll let you know, you'll know in the next week by the first week in March what we're gonna look at. We have not had sit down and meet with the union. The rep has been, their rep had had an extended leave that she needed to take, so.
Okay. Any other questions for financials? Moving on to the accounts payable over $1,250. I believe it's about on page 70 of the packet. Any questions or comments?
What's the three 2-yard dumpsters? What are those?
That's an in and out kind of expense. We buy them and then typically sell them to a company that wants one. I'm trying to remember off the top of my head. A couple of people ordered dumpsters. We buy them and then we sell them to them at cost. We still we have not started. One of the things I brought to you a couple of months ago was the idea of renting them. I have not finished that or brought that ordinance before you. I was thinking first of the at the beginning of the fiscal year.
What's the cost on dumpster?
$482.
$492.
Yeah. And then we also have a couple of loaner dumpsters. So I don't want to. I'm not sure if this one. I know at least one of these is for a customer. It could be these are also the 2 loaner dumpsters that we bought to replace the ones we had that were about dead. So we bought a couple just for our own operation this year.
And what's the unit number 89 parts repairs? What's
the
that?
Truck accident down at the Columbia landfill, and we were reimbursed up to our $500 deductible for that. And I don't know if you guys remember those blue tower transponders. Those are the ones that we agreed to buy 100 of. And actually we had one that had not been delivered that we ordered months ago, and they gave it to us for the $100 price, so we actually ended up with 101. And then there's $18.60 of shipping. But those are the piece of the electric meter that reports to the cars that drives by, so we don't have to go house to house. We have one-way meters. They report to us as we drive around.
Any other questions? Hearing none, moving on to other general government capital budget requests.
Scrolling back up to mine. Yeah. Back on. Page 10, or 11 actually. The only thing we're asking for basically from general government is, well, 2 things basically. One is, it's something actually that both the chief and I have talked about several times. The ability to put some safety cameras, and I put it in general government, but there might be some other safety sensitive spots across the city if we can work on remote cameras. This is a placeholder number. Working with the technical advisory committee that met last week, looking at prices to put a couple cameras, probably somewhere in City Hall, possibly even in this room. We have a camera, obviously, but it's not a safety camera. There's nobody watching it until we download it and put it on. So,
and it's not an NVR or a DVR either. So.
Correct. Exactly. So, and then someplace, like where the gals are up front.
And to me, what made your request a little more problematic was the fact of it being remote.
Well, there's also, we've got a couple of substations and a water plant. It's just, these are the sort of things that are becoming almost required. Mm-hmm. If we had, if we were a little larger utility, there are federal requirements to do some of these things. the NERC requires it, NERC, and I can't remember exactly what that stands for. But for larger utilities, they require some of these things.
And then it goes into what the connectivity is of these from one location
Right,
back, and is it
right.
tunneled in, and blah, blah, blah.
Yeah, right, we kind of talked a little bit about that, so this is, and I put in there $3,000 with the possibility of adding a DVR. Right now, I talked with the chief, he's got space for 6 or so more cameras before we, on a monitor, you might need a monitor if you go beyond that, and then checking on what the DVR space, but memory is a lot cheaper than it used to be. I mean, DVR, correct me if I'm wrong, but
Space on everything.
yeah, is much cheaper than it used to be. So I mean, obviously, anything here is a suggestion. You guys are the legislators, you get to make a decision if there's something you do not like, you know. Down at the bottom of the page, and this is a number I have not gotten firmed up with Ed Sigmund of the Missouri Regional Planning Commission. I will get it firmed up obviously in the next month or less than that. That would be the highest possible cost to have them work with us on redoing the comprehensive plan. It's $30,000. I don't think it will be that much, but you start with a big number and whittle it down. There may be some, there's a possibility that there could be some grant money, particularly if one of the things we look at is emergency preparedness in the capital brochure. That, you don't want to torture your process a lot to hunt for a grant, because you end up not getting the process you want. But if it does overlap, there's a possibility that could help fund part of the project. In which case it would be vastly less. And that's all I got for capital for general government.
Okay. Downtown residential parking.
We have a couple of people who live downtown. We currently have I apologize, I forgot to check this. I can't remember if we put it in ordinance to prevent people from parking essentially overnight. The parking lot, Albert's parking lot, we do not allow parking between 12 a.m. and 3 a.m. There are at least a couple of residents downtown that live across the street from there who would like to accommodate some of their neighbors and park there overnight. What I was thinking is that we could simply give them a hang tag, something not expensive, something we just laminate, or, I don't know if we want to even collect a fee for this, but if they prove they have a residence downtown, give them the ability to park overnight in that parking lot. If we get them off the street when it comes time for snow removal, yes, they would not be able to do snow removal for those spots in that parking lot. But not nearly as important, street sweeping. And the other thing is they have limited or not very, my understanding is they have really no good place to park behind their building. So they park in front, and that gets not only in the way of street sweeping and snow removal, but some of the vendors downtown, some of the business owners downtown, you can't park on out of the street without parking in front of somebody's business. And sometimes I don't know about you, but I don't always move my car every day. Well, they're parked on a city street for more than 24 hours, so technically they'd be in violation of ordinance. Here's a question.
Yes.
I was going to say, the city of Chicago has a very similar program where residents can get a tag like that to park on a side street, because street parking in Chicago is scarce, but they can also request and get visitor tags, one-time only tags, but it's essentially a sticker that goes on the inside of the windshield and then peels off easy the next morning. So you might be able to do something along that line.
You're thinking harder than I did. Because we're talking mostly about the residents, but yeah, you're right. Visitors could be I don't know if visitors are as big an issue, but definitely the residents downtown.
If I may, I don't care. As I recall, somebody can help me connect the dots here. About the time I came here, I thought we changed that restriction on what we call Albert's Lot because we had trouble with youngsters laying up there till 3 or 4 o'clock in the morning, as I recall.
About 3 months after you came here, yes.
So we signed the thing, changed the ordinance, or maybe just signed the thing, as I recall, that no parking in there, whatever we have there now. That's kind of the history of it. I don't think we have that kind of problem right now. If we do, in the future, then we'll address it then. But it's the city's lot over there. That would be up to you folks.
And like I said, I did not determine whether or not that was done by ordinance or just sort of, I would think we would have had to since we have to post it.
I thought we changed the ordinance.
We changed the ordinances.
I thought we did.
I think I am the only one running back.
I was thinking we changed the ordinance there.
Yeah, it looks at prohibiting persons from being inside downtown city parking lot during certain hours.
Specific to that lot, I think is what we did. Yes.
Lots 4 and 5 of block 23 of the original town. Between the hours of 12:01 a.m. and 6 a.m. Unless written permission is given by mayor, chief of police, or city administrator for certain persons. So, yeah, I guess
So
actually.
you already have your,
So there you go.
if someone lives there and we know that, I don't have an issue with it.
Right. And I would, even if I had done my research, I would still wanted to come to you and make sure that that is something that you guys know what we're doing there. So you're okay with us coming up with some sort of way to give
People who reside there.
people who actually really reside there. All right.
I think a couple things ought to happen. One, that the vehicle is properly registered.
Oh, no, absolutely.
Yeah.
And that they, of course, do live there. I think that the parking permit, that's what we're gonna call it, ought to come from the city administrator's office. I'm in the enforcement business. I
Completely agree.
Yeah,
That makes sense.
yeah, that ought to come, whatever parking.
So registered vehicle, properly registered vehicle, proof
Yeah, I
of it.
think the vehicle needs to be
For
properly
residents.
registered.
Do you anticipate a fee for that?
I don't think we ought to charge them.
It wouldn't be worth it.
Well, if you worked in the area,
have to apply for one.
if you worked in the area and parked, say, on Albert's Lot through the daytime, certainly there should be a fee for that, $250, $300 a year.
I'll pass that on to the friends of Tennessee. I just don't know.
Well, there you have it.
Well, there you have it.
Can we do it based on how much we like the person, or?
No problem.
Yeah, that's,
That'll pass constitutional
yes,
muster.
there's something even more subjective.
For me, I tend to agree with Alderman Maggie, maybe more, that, well, not charge folks an additional fee because they're already thrown in. I mean, but there ought to be a parking permit with viable contact numbers on there that we can call someone and say, hey, we need
Right.
this thing out of the way.
How come your vehicle's been there for 3 weeks now and has to move? And it seems to be jacked up all blocks?
And there's a pool of oil underneath.
The problem becomes particularly Anchor Fest Car Show Sunday,
Right.
and it's labor intensive. So,
But you will know those people. I mean, you will have already,
sure,
you know who those letters have been issued to.
sure.
So our ability to say, hey, listen,
And if you, probably, if they do it, and you tell them, you know, be out of here Sunday at Anchor Fest,
Right.
they probably won't have a problem.
I don't have a problem with that. I agree.
You know, if you give them a heads up.
Right. But are we talking about anyone besides residents? Are we talking about, I mean, if you work downtown, are you?
No, I was just simply trying to pull James's chain.
yeah, I think he's being.
Well, you know,
I appreciate that, but for my own self-preservation, I mean, I guess I've been violating the curfew for 5 years straight now or something in the parking lot. There are some nights that I do park directly in front of the building,
Okay,
It's only in the parking lot that you're not allowed to.
and usually I'm there till 2 o'clock or so.
yes.
On the street or in the parking lot?
In the Albert parking lot.
Yeah.
It's the same old thing. Now, maybe this is wrong of me to say, but
And
it's
you,
the same old
how many
thing.
times have you done this?
These statements are being made.
This is on tape.
It's the same old thing. One, it's not a foul until the referee blows his whistle, right? I mean,
Hey, it'd be kind of fun to be the first person to actually apply for one if I'm supposed to apply for one, that's all.
I don't think
In the name
that's,
of the fireside.
I don't think you're the kind of folks we're talking about. We're trying to get those
Right.
folks
But it-
off the.
I mean, I guess we could make, if somebody can make a case for that they're working an overnight, if they started making donuts at the, I'm not saying they should, I heard this somewhere, I'm not saying, they should, but they had to start coming in at 1 o'clock in the mornings to work at the bakery. I guess we could ask if they have a legitimate reason to be there.
I see that as apples and oranges from what we're being asked to do
Right.
to what is already working.
Yeah, okay. But the primary thing is about residents.
Primary thing is about residents. I think we can come up
We'll worry
with a
about
parking
residents.
permit and move on.
Okay, yes.
All right.
Legislative issues.
You still there, Tim?
I think he's asleep.
I think we put Tim.
Mr. Mayor?
No, I'm still here.
Oh, you just woke him up.
Oh, I had on mute, so I was trying to find my mute button.
Oh, okay. So, I got a call today from the MML. Because I'm geographically close to Jeff City, they asked if I would come down and testify on a bill. I didn't. They didn't need it. It turned out it wasn't. Particularly, it was a proposed law that would prohibit cities from banning an individual from drilling a water well within the city limits. So it would give you a right to drill a well. There were enough protections in the law that the MML and the MPUA decided it wasn't something they wanted to spend a lot of time and effort protesting. And I don't want to go, and I don't know why the bill was proposed, and I don't know. It could be a problem, of course, if they tried to tie into the system and you need to verify. But Tim works obviously down in Jeff City, and is on the board of the MML. And I've read some minutes back where you've given Lynn or the mayor at the time sort of the go-ahead to represent the city on certain issues. Is there a certain protocol that you guys expect myself or Tim to do before, or anybody else on this board, for that matter, to go through before we run down to Jeff City and say, the city hates this, and it turns out that there's 4 members on the board that thought it was a pretty darn good idea?
I think before someone testifies on behalf of the city, we need to be aware of it.
Right.
Yeah.
So do you want to have, aside from, so beyond the fact that there are things that the MML have taken a stance on, we're a member of the MML, does the board want to have a specific, do you want to have have to have it come through a committee meeting or board meeting before because sometimes
That doesn't work very well as far as timing is concerned.
Right.
Although that's probably the way it ought to be, it just doesn't work for
Right.
the legislative, for the way the legislative process.
And we're not really allowed to have a meeting online, like I email all of you and say, hey, what do you guys think? Because that's effectively it is by Missouri open meetings law, also known as the Sunshine, popularly known as the Sunshine Law. That would be an illegal meeting. So I guess what I'm saying is, do we need something beyond that? Do we want to pick some issues that we feel most strongly about and sort of say, if this comes up and the MML or MPUA or Missouri Rural Water organizations that we're members of say, hey, this is a high priority, would you be willing, because your story is compelling, to speak? One of the ones that I'm specifically thinking of is, there's a couple that are down there. One, I don't know, it's been heard in the House, they're looking in the Senate, they haven't introduced it yet in the Senate. There's a law that basically says that we cannot establish a new internet service or partner with somebody or provide conduit or dark fiber to entice a company to provide internet service in the city of Centralia without a vote of the people. And for every single change in that service, depending upon how you read the bill, you would have to go back for a new vote of the people. Some people have interpreted this, or cooperative marketing, which in one extreme case, in one place, was included allowing them to pay for and put a logo on a water tower.
That's one interpretation.
That was found to be in a different state where there was a similar law. So that's one that I think that the city should be interested in. I don't think we have no interest in starting our own internet company. We don't have that resource, we don't have that interest. But if we don't get, I mean, right now, Cobblestone doesn't have internet in the most recent part. They don't have cable anywhere. They've got cable in the ground, but it hasn't been laid yet. So, as you all know, the next generation of, for entrepreneurs to come to town, you could have $1 million business operating in Centralia online, and you may not even know it exists. But if you don't have internet that's of sufficient speed, it's not going to happen. Similarly, there's a bill down there which may or may not be that as bad as it sounds. Basically, it would limit the amount of fines that you could get in municipal court for nuisances. We don't go that route very often anyway. So for Centralia, it's not as huge a big a deal. But there have been a number of different laws like that limiting our ability, and also limiting municipal authority, and also, and the other biggest threat that we face down there is the occasional effort to make things exempt to sales tax. So, like 1 year, they wanted to make the sale of automobiles maybe for 2007 or something like that, or no, it was later, 2010 or something like that, 1 year exempt from any sales tax. So I guess,
but are you going to keep throwing out, an example and say, have us go, yeah, we're okay with you going, or just saying this seems like a...
Well, I would say we pick 4 or 5 top issues and say, if these come up, this is something that you guys can, as long as you're sticking to this, if I don't go down there and say, yeah, we're all in favor of allowing people as long as we're against this, and I go down and say we're against this, that's one possible way to address it. And if it's something else that comes up and there's an emergency, we just say, hey, not until my board specifically addresses this issue and says something. That's a balance that I think we might be able to strike. They prefer you guys to go down there, by the way. Elected officials, you guys carry a lot more weight down there.
Have any of you been asked to?
Well, they send out alerts over down there.
Yeah. You guys get the legislative alerts from ML?
Yeah, I gave them an email.
Yeah. So, did you want to add anything, Tim?
Yeah, I don't have a problem if the NFL calls me and I'm at work. I can just kind of step out of work and go down there and talk to the committee hearing, or talk to them down there. I don't have a problem doing that. But like you said, I think we should have something in place from the board that
So, what
Yes,
I'm
sir.
saying,
Everybody gets the legislative updates and actually read them and call their representatives. I mean, I've talked to Caleb Rowden and I've talked to Kurt Schaefer in the past.
So are you wanting to approach this with like what they bring up in the alerts and then decide, hey, board, if they come to us, is that the approach you want?
well, I mean, one approach is anything the MML has said we're in favor of it, that we go down there. I think that's a little too broad.
I agree.
Or MPUA, or, I think if we, what I'm suggesting is that Tim and me and anybody else who have some on there that we adopt probably at the next meeting, or these are the ones that are the most important to Centralia. If Tim gets called, if I get called, if Dick gets called, to ask to testify, that we don't have to come back to this board and say, hey, is it okay if I testify on behalf of the city? Because these are priority issues for us. Among the 300.
Yeah, that's why I'm like, okay, so you're just gonna pick your top 5 out of that?
Matt?
Yes, Tim.
For instance, that Senate Bill 5 last year, or what is it, 574 or something like that this year, which is very restrictive on the amount of fines that we can levy and all that stuff. I think we need to be contacting our representative and telling them that you shouldn't be punishing the whole state for one city that abuses power or whatever.
And yeah, and the biggest issue to us on Senate Bill 5, and those are the ones that said you need to limit the amount of money you take in municipal court, and you need to be careful of the way you do that, and then you need to track how much you spend. We get 3% of our revenues, maybe, from municipal court. It probably covers the expense of having that mechanism there to fine people when they do something that's a problem in our community. But yeah, so yeah, that could be one of the ones we put on the list. Is that okay? Tim, do you think that's a logical approach that we just pick our top 5 or roughly?
Yeah, but they change so rapidly. That's the problem. I mean, my take on it is this. There's nothing to prevent you from going down there and testifying on your own behalf. I don't have a problem with you going down there and testifying on the impact it has on the city without advocating one way or another. I mean, that's something that you can do. You can say, this is how it impacts us.
Right.
That's not necessarily an advocacy position. It's just, this is how it impacts us.
Yeah.
But I don't know how we give you the authority to do something in the climate of what happens down there, because I know how rapidly that changes. I mean, things can happen just virtually instantaneously down there at times.
Right. That's very true.
You get very little notice.
Well, this bill today, they heard about it, no stuff Friday afternoon, hearing on Monday. So
right.
Jessica.
If I may, Mayor Granke already has the authority to represent the city on these issues because he is the elected mayor by the citizenry of Centralia. He is elected, among other things, to represent this city on these issues. So when these things change on a rapid basis, and the fact that he is conveniently already in Jeff City half the time, he is able to represent us without constantly running and saying, Mother, may I? It's part of his mandate as mayor.
I'm not so sure it extends quite that far.
So is there the idea of picking out our top issues, are those the ones that we would?
I think it's great. If you were to come with a list of them that we as a group, we have a unified voice.
And actually, to Jessica's point, I think you guys have a lot more leeway to do that. And Tim is in Jeff City, so that may be the most logical approach. I guess I'm looking more for myself, because I'm a hired person, and I need to have, things are different for me, and I can't, I don't see Denny or the chief going down to Jeff City, but it could happen, so.
I've been down there testifying on some bills time to time.
So we'll come back to the next meeting.
Okay, all right, because I don't want to, I promise you, try and make this a quick one, and we just lost that option. So.
Fireworks ordinance.
Okay. There were several in your packet. We talked about this last year, trying to give us enough of a heads up so that we can have something in place before a number of cities responded, and basically the message of those who sent me a draft ordinance was they realized a reasonably good amount of revenue from allowing this. They kept some of those revenues inside the city, sales tax and permitting fees, as opposed to having them just outside the city limit. And then in terms of, so read through, if you guys have some things you like, if you have some things you don't like, let me know. Do we still want to move forward with trying to make it, technically it is legal, but it's so restrictive in the city limits that no one's done it.
Sure.
Make it less restrictive so that we may actually see people sell fireworks within the city limits or something like that. Do we still want to proceed with that? Is there
Well, I have
everybody's
no
looking
objection-
away.
I have no,
I have no objection to collecting sales tax on whatever it takes.
Okay. No. Okay. That's what I remember hearing.
Yeah. And certainly in that regard, I want to make sure that you're on board with.
I mean, are we gonna have a certain spot gonna do this, not like in a residence?
Well, I would think we'd keep it in business,
You have to be in the business district, right?
Right.
Well,
You can't sell it out of your house.
No, it'd have to be in a B2 as well.
Yeah.
I would think B2 or M1 zoning, not in the central business district. We got kind of a rule that you can't set off fireworks, and there's a specific designated area that's, so.
I appreciate if you give some thought to, like we do liquor license, whatever. Think about coming up with a number of how many fireworks licenses we're
I
going
thought we
to.
decided 5, didn't we?
Did
Starting
we?
off?
Yeah,
Didn't we talk like 5 or 6?
4 or 5 is what I thought we were.
I thought 5 or 6 is all we were gonna do at first.
Yeah,
And then if we got bigger, we were gonna, bump it up a little bit, but
right,
starting off, we weren't gonna give a whole bunch.
right.
How many do we have
And I think
around
that's a smart-
town? Just outside the city limits?
It's probably.
That's kind of what I was
Two,
thinking.
right? Or is there just the one out there?
One in Thompson and one more.
So, I mean,
North Town,
it's not like we're gonna have probably a great influx of them.
You never know.
But at the same token, I would agree, we don't want to have 30 of them, so.
And I believe we still have a ordinance that says that the fire chief can say it's too dry to set them off.
Oh, yeah,
Do we have that, or? I
We
know
pretty well follow the county, the county puts up a red flag here.
Yeah.
All right. Okay.
Okay.
I'm ready to move forward if you guys are.
Electrical capacity sales options.
Where it's not proving as easy to make a capacity sale, we may end up going to auction. That's basically, if you want more details. I thought I would have something a little more specific. The explosion in prices for capacity in one zone of MISO last year has made everybody a little skittish.
Gotcha. Esme Rice?
I have one thing.
Sir.
Where are we, Mr. Harline, with respect to the, do you have a piece of paper or a document with respect to the pound? We need to get that thing mailed off.
It's done. It's an online thing now.
Done?
Yeah, did it today.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah. And it'll be even faster next year now that I have the template, so
Oh, okay.
Yeah, it's about a 5-minute thing once you sit down and do it.
Do we have to
All right.
renew that every year?
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay.
Any other items, Mayor Wise? I would entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. All those in favor say aye. All those opposed?